afternoon. Welcome to the Capital Readiness Program pre-application webinar brought to you by the Minority Business Development Agency. I am Antavia Grimsley, Deputy Chief at the Office of Legislative, Education, and Intergovernmental Affairs here at MBDA. This webinar is for informational purposes only and is intended solely to assist potential applicants in better understanding the MBDA Capital Readiness Program. This pre-application webinar will also provide you with information on the Notice of Funding Opportunity, which is also listed in your related content within this pre-application webinar console. The information in this webinar does not and is not intended to supersede, modify, or otherwise alter applicable statutory or regulatory requirements or the specific requirements outlined in the Notice of Funding Opportunity. This is a funding competition for technical assistance providers to provide services under the MBDA Capital Readiness Program. This competition is not for individual entrepreneurs or small business owners to use the funds to grow their own businesses. If you are an entrepreneur or a small business owner who needs help, please visit www.mbda.gov or visit an MBDA business center located near you. Here's some webinar protocol as you join us today. Please remember to submit all questions via the question. All questions will be answered at the end of the webinar. If we are unable to get to your question, it will be published at www.mbda.gov under the Capital Readiness Program Frequently Asked Questions page. Remember to please keep all questions that you have relevant to the topic at hand. I already see the excitement in the chat, but please keep the chat free so that we may be able to keep track of all of your questions. Today, you'll be hearing from 3 presenters here at MBDA. First, you will hear from Carrie Lee, Chief of Staff within the Office of the Undersecretary. Then you will hear from Ethan Gonzalez Jr., Associate Director in the Office of Policy Analysis and Development. Last, you will hear from Angela Bell, Special Advisor within the Office of the Chief Operating Officer. Ladies and gentlemen, now Ms. Carrie Lee, Chief of Staff here at MBDA.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for making time to attend this webinar. I'm really excited to see the proposals come in, and I'm incredibly excited to share this opportunity with you. Just to start off, I wanted to highlight a few critical dates for you. One, the application deadline date is February 28th. Please keep that in mind. And I recommend you start your application process early and soon. Also, we recommend everyone email, if you are intending to apply, we recommend you send us an email of intent. That deadline is January 31st. That's January 17th and January 24th. Now, very excited to share with you the Minority Business Development Agency's Capital Ready program. Next slide. What is the Capital Readiness Program? This is a joint partnership between us and Treasury for the State Small Business Credit Initiative. What we saw from the pandemic was we lost a lot of small businesses, and we found that socially and economically disadvantaged individuals or entrepreneurs such as women and marginalized groups were particularly vulnerable to the pandemic and had many businesses close. This is our opportunity to spark another generation of entrepreneurs. This program is designed to help close the entrepreneurship gap between socially and economically disadvantaged individuals and non-SETI groups. We are looking for applications from qualified organizations that have expertise in launching and scaling businesses. In particular, the competition is seeking applicants that have the ability to build capacity for entrepreneurs, help access capital opportunities, and attract access to networks. And at the end of the program, We are hoping that all of the applicants apply for the State Small Business Credit Initiative, equity or loan programs, or other governmental programs that support small businesses. What does this mean? Let's take a look under the hood. This program is to help launch and scale businesses. In particular, women and minority businesses. We are hoping that women and minority businesses launch and scale investable and scalable businesses. What we've seen in the landscape is too few minority and women businesses ever receive venture capital backing or any equity investments. What we see, this is the landscape we are dealing with. 2% of businesses are Black-owned. Black and Latinx founders only receive 2.4% of venture capital funding. Black women receive less than half a percentage. But if we are able to close this gap, if we are able to make sure that women in underserved communities and minority entrepreneurs are able to access the resources, we can add millions of jobs to the economy and trillions of dollars to our GDP. But what are the challenges that women and minority business face? In our research, we have found that the three main challenges are access to capital. SETI, socially economically disadvantaged entrepreneurs often pay more for capital and rely heavily on expensive personal debt. Access to networks. Networks are often informally built among people who've already done business together and can be difficult for entrepreneurs to access. And capacity building. SETI entrepreneurs often have fewer tools and resources necessary to grow business from pre-seed startup to exit. So what are the opportunities? Next slide. This is where you come in. We are looking for partners to help us close those gaps. We are looking for partners who can help us access capital and capital opportunities. That's assisting entrepreneurs identify governmental capital programs, facilitate investor meetings, pitches, demo days, making cap intros to angel investors and early stage investors. Access to network, facilitating strategic alliances, mentor relationships, creating peer relationships, bringing subject matters to the table, helping entrepreneurs create advisory boards, etc. And finally, capacity building. We're looking for partners who can help us build out the capacity of some of these promising entrepreneurs. That includes financial literacy, legal assistant, boot camp, workforce development. But these are the three pillars of our program, and we look forward to your proposals to see how we can creatively address these. Okay. So our program is designed for two groups of technical assistant providers, and sometimes you can be both. We are looking for incubators and accelerators. Now, you don't necessarily have to call yourself an incubator or accelerator, but these are the characteristics we are looking for. We're looking for either an early stage technical assistant provider that helps startup launch. We're talking early stage. We're talking early stage business development, financial literacy, the basic business 101 to help companies properly launch. We are also looking for accelerators. Accelerators will be helping more emerging businesses that are a little bit later in their growth cycle and helping them with a little more sophisticated either curriculum, help them attract more sophisticated capital and navigate them perhaps through the due diligence process. Many applicants may meet both standards, both early stage and emerging stage, but we would like a nice mix of these technical assistance providers to cover the lifespan of a business. Next, who are eligible applicants? We are looking for nonprofit, for-profit entities, institution of higher education, or a consortium of two or more of the above mentioned. I'd also say, while we're looking for applicants who have a track record of serving the SETI population, if you have not traditionally had that track record, I recommend that you apply anyways and team up with an institution that does. And we're going to turn it over to our Associate Director from the Office of Policy Analysis and Development, Efrain Gonzalez Jr.
Thank you so much, Carrie. Let's go to the next slide, please. A friendly reminder to our audience, if you have questions, we encourage you to enter into the prompt question that is, throughout this webinar. This is a way for us to actually capture the information that you're seeking and our ability to actually respond to you. So let's get to this in this particular slide. The most important document to understand is the Notice of Funding Opportunity, which by its acronym is NOFO, or as we call it, the NOFO. That's a terminology that we use within government. This document announces the grant opportunity. It answers why, what, how, when, and who related to the program. It contains details about the application requirements and the procedures to request federal funding. Let's go to the next slide, please. So, where exactly can I find this NOFO document? The answer is, open up a browser, enter www.grants.gov. Once the grants.gov page is viewed on your screen, use the search feature and type in MBDA for the Minority Business Development Agency. This screenshot will appear on your screen and becomes your doorway to the Capital Readiness Program, NOFO. Now, a quick little tip. This screen not only connects us to the NOFO, it also connects us to other important documents, and it also reminds us of the deadline to submit. This deadline is critical. We'll talk more about that in a few minutes. Let's go to the next slide, please. On the far left of this particular table, you will have the NOFO opportunity number. You can also actuate that opportunity number, and by selecting the number, you will get to the synopsis tab of the full NOFO text. Let's go to the next slide, please. Here, we're able to see the synopsis page and the tabs that take us to the related documents, as well as other important information. Select the Related Documents tab. Once you select the Related Documents tab, you're going to access this page and the links to the NOFO. Select any of the two links and it will take you to the NOFO itself. Again, the NOFO is the most important document to understand. We encourage you to read it carefully and adhere to the instructions. One last tip on this subject. You can also get directly to the Capital Readiness Program NOFO by visiting mbda.gov, choosing Capital Readiness Program, and then selecting the grants.gov image. That will put you into the same place. Ladies and gentlemen, let me also introduce to you my colleague, Angela.
All righty. Thank you, Efren. We're going to walk through now obtain a unique entity identifier, or UEI. The next step is just a reminder to register early in SAM, which is the System for Award Management, which the federal government uses. And just as a reminder to folks, this step could actually take up to 2 weeks. So I would suggest that you register as early as possible. The second part is that you're going to go to grants.gov and you're going to complete an authorized organization representative, or AOR, profile. And in there, you'll create your username and password. And just as a reminder to folks that MBDA does not control access to SAM or grants.gov. So if you have issues, please reach out to those websites and access their help desk feature to get support there. The biggest step is make sure that when you do submit your application that you address all the requirements that are outlined in that NOFO. All righty. So now that you're ready to submit your application, what should actually be included? The first thing you're going to include will be the project abstract. And just as a note, that's limited to 1 page. The biggest piece of this is actually going to be your project narrative. And we're going to go into a lot more detail when we get a little further into today's discussion. But of all that information, it's limited to 20 pages. So make sure that you take note of that. You're also going to make sure you send your supporting documents. There'll be some letters of commitment, resumes of some of the key personnel, and a few other things that you'll want to submit there. The next piece will be your standard forms. So the first one is going to be the SF-424, which is the application for federal assistance. And just as a note there, that you will submit only one SF-424 that's going to cover all 4 years. The next standard form is the 424A. This one is the budget information for non-construction programs. And as a note here, you will submit a separate 424A for each of the budget years. That means you will have 4 424As. The next standard form is the 424B, and this is the assurances for non-construction programs. The next form is the CD 511. This is the certification regarding lobbying. And then you will also submit the standard form LLL, which is your disclosure of lobbying activities. The next major piece of your submission will be your budget narrative. And as a note here, please only submit one budget narrative that's going to cover all 4 years. Next piece of your submission will be your letters of commitment. And this is from applicants who are working with other organizations with a strong track record of working with SETIs. Your last form will be the, if applicable, the indirect cost rate or your ICR agreement documentation. And all of this will be detailed in the NOFO on pages 16 through 28 for additional details. All right, there's another important program requirement, and this is the non-federal match requirements. Depending on the amount of the money of your budget, the money requested, the non-federal match can range from 10% to 25%. This is detailed in sections 2A and 3B of the NOFO, but I just wanted to maybe share a couple of examples here. So if your request is for tier 1, which would be up to $500,000, over the 4-year period, that would be up to $2 million. 10% of that would be what you would need to provide as non-federal share. So over the 4-year period, that would be up to $200,000 of money that would be needed to cover the cost there. Of course, it goes up to $750,000, and that, of course, depends on the tier that you are submitting. Okay. All right, I am going to now turn it over to Efren Gonzalez Jr., who will begin the discussion on the project narrative.
Thank you, Angela. Let's go to the next slide, please. Fantastic. So let's get started with understanding the key elements of the project narrative. This is the section that outlines what you must have in your proposal. Here, we start to look at 8 different sections: project description, location, industry, and/or market segment, target participants, project implementation timeline, project activities, goals and objectives, networks, and collaboration with the capital ecosystem, applicant capability, and last but not least, sustainability. In terms of the project narrative outline, we encourage you to structure your project narrative in accordance with the outline specified in the NOFO. So again, pay close attention to what's been outlined. Include all the elements identified in the outline and follow the instructions for each element. We also ask that you adhere to the 20-page limit. So be judicious with the information that you're providing to us so that we can get to the heart of the matter and get to the relevance of the information in your proposal sooner rather than later. So the first section is project description. Here, what we're looking for is for you to fully describe and explain what is being proposed. Provide an executive summary of the program of no more than 250 words. This will help us better understand what your high-level perspective is for the proposal that you are providing to us. Let's go to section 2. Location, industry, and/or market segmentation. We know that we have well over 1,000 individuals participating in today's event. Many of you come from all over the United States with a different level and of integration with your communities and the folks that you serve. We want you to indicate the specific geographic service area and region where your proposed project and the activities will be implemented. We want you to provide a clearly defined explanation of the area's demographics, assets, and the needs. Use this data to help formulate your proposal. If you plan to focus on a particular industry or a market segment, that spans multiple geographic areas. You must demonstrate a plan to serve multiple geographic areas. Please keep that in mind. The next section is target participant. Here, we want you to clearly identify the target participants, including what SETI groups are, what are their needs, and who are you targeting. Industry or market segment focus, maturity of entrepreneur, businesses served, for example, the incubators and or accelerators or a hybrid model, and the method of technical assistance that you're proposing to deliver. Angela, back to you.
Alrighty. Thank you, Fred. I'm going to continue this discussion on project narrative. So now we're going to talk about the project implementation timeline. We're asking that you provide a timeline over the 4-year period of performance that includes the annual milestones addressing how the applicant will accomplish the project. We also want you to include a 120-day, your first 120-day ramp-up activities and how you're going to perform those tasks. Now, the next big piece will be the project activities, goals, and the objectives. We'd ask in this section that you provide the proposed numeric project goals and the categories that will be tracked. There's more information in Appendix B for what those required categories are. And for each proposed goal, we'd like to see a description of the methodology or the evidence and key assumptions that you use to come up with these proposed goals. We'd actually also like you to describe in detail the activities and the services that you'll undertake to address each of the 3 program pillars that Ms. Lee spoke to in the beginning of our program. Next, we'll talk about we'd like to describe in detail what economic and investment opportunities are available. Describe in detail what the specific outreach strategies that will be used by the applicant and its partners. And finally, under project activities, goals, and objectives, we'd ask you to describe in detail how the project is aligned with the needs of the target participants. Next will be networks and collaboration with the capital ecosystem. In this section, the applicant should present information that describes what your networks are, especially those that are in that target geographic region, that industry, and or the market segment that you're targeting. You'd also want to include a detailed plan how you're going to collaborate or connect with participating jurisdictions or government programs that support small businesses and help build a referral system for those program participants. Next section is applicant capability. The applicant must present information that demonstrates your experience and qualifications to leverage some of the national and regional assets. The application should include this following information. First thing is going to be the applicant profile. Second will be the applicant track record of working with SETI entrepreneurs or strategic alliances, their organization's track record. And you will talk about the applicant's background working with businesses and or entrepreneurs. We'll also ask that you include what your organization structure looks like. We'd also like to see the bios and the resumes for the key personnel. And finally, in applicant capability, we'd also like you to list there the disclosure of any pending or completed investigations, lawsuits, or findings. And finally, we'd like to include there sustainability. Here, we'd like you to talk about what the lasting impact will be when your proposed solution is implemented and what are the long-term benefits. There's also a list in the NOFO, or a non-existent list of possible examples of what those lasting impacts may look like. And with that, I am going to turn it back over to Ephraim, who's going to close us out today.
Thank you so much, Angela. Well, ladies and gentlemen, before we go into our question and answer session, I would like to remind us of the following key items. Please remember the application deadline is February 28th at 11:59 p.m. Eastern. Any application received after this deadline will not be accepted, reviewed, or considered for funding. Now, MBDA highly encourages any prospective applicant or entity that is entertaining the submission of an application to let us know by submitting an email of intent through the ssbci@mbda.gov address. We ask that you take a look at page 15 of the NOFO for more instructions pertaining to the email of intent process. Last, today's event is one of 3 sessions. Our second session is focused on application review criteria. It's going to be held on January the 17th, followed by budget best practices and pitfalls to avoid, measuring success and performance. That event is going to be held on January the 24th. Okay, let's get started with the questions and answer session, shall we? First things first, MBDA has already posted frequently asked questions on the mbda.gov website. We invite you to take a look at the responses to 51 questions already posted. Second, we recognize that we have a whole lot of participants today, which is phenomenal, and we may not be able to answer all the questions that we received through the question prompt. We ask you to please enter your questions as soon as possible during this session. And if we cannot get to your questions, we will update the FAQs and to highlight the questions we received as we progress through this competition period. All right, let's get to the first question, shall we? Angela? I've got the first question as, will this video be available on the session?
Great question. And yes. A recording of the webinar and the slide deck will be shared after the webinar and will be available on the MBDA website.
Thank you, Angela. Angela, I'm going to go to the next one over here. We've seen a few questions about whether SEDI, SETI-owned businesses, can apply for this funding opportunity.
Well, I'm going to actually take this question in 2 parts. First of all, this program is for technical assistance providers to apply for funding to run a program that will help lots and lots of entrepreneurs and business owners. This is not for individual business owners or applicants to apply for funding to grow their own businesses. Secondly, all eligible entities can apply. Any technical assistance provider that's an eligible entity can apply. There's no benefit for applicants to be SETI-owned. Whichever entities win the competition will focus on providing technical assistance to SETI-owned businesses and entrepreneurs.
Thanks, Angela. Here's a simple one. Are nonprofits eligible?
Yes. And please refer to page 14 of the NOFO for what kind of organizations are eligible to apply.
Very good. Let's look at this one. What policies are in place in ensuring the fairness for all applicants?
Thank you for that question. The NOFO lists the scoring criteria that would be applied to each application. 3 independent reviewers will review each application, and those scores will be leveraged to ensure fairness for all.
Fantastic. Okay, a little bit more complicated. We're seeing, let's go here. I think I need to clarify this particular question over here. Can a municipality apply for the grant program if it's already operating an MBDA business center?
A municipality would count as a local government, and they are not eligible.
Thank you for that. Next question. Can existing MBDA business centers apply for this grant?
Actually, yes. If a current MBDA grantee is an otherwise eligible entity under the eligibility categories in this NOFO, it would be eligible to apply under this NOFO. Receipt of other MBDA funds does not render an applicant ineligible. Similarly, receipt of other MBDA funds does not make an otherwise ineligible entity eligible under this NOFO. For example, in the response I just gave, the municipality doesn't become eligible just because it runs a business center.
Thank you for that. Okay, another question is, are applicants who have received or plan to receive funding from Treasury's SSBCI technical assistance programs eligible to apply for these funds?
Again, yes. That entity is an otherwise eligible entity under the eligibility categories in this NOFO. It would indeed be eligible to apply.
Great. Wow, we're going through a lot of questions in a short period of time. This is fantastic. The next question is, when does the grant have to be executed? During fiscal year 2023?
Actually, the period of performance once the awards have been distributed is July 2023 through June 2027.
Okay. So the question is, I submitted the email of intent, but did not receive any confirmation. Is that okay?
We've actually received a tremendous level of interest and are working through all the submissions. There isn't a confirmation email being sent for each submission. And a reminder that this NOFO is the official application and will still be required even after the email of intent is submitted.
Fantastic. Let me see if we have any updates here. Angela, I see that some of our questions have been updated, and I am looking at this particular question, see if you can see it as well. We're seeing a lot of questions about eligibility. Can you give us the criteria for eligible organizations to apply?
Absolutely. So in page 15 of the NOFO, it states that eligible applicants are limited to nonprofit organizations, private sector entities, defined as entities that are not public sector entities, includes, for example, nonprofit entities of any type, sole proprietorships, partnerships, limited liability companies, and corporations, but does not include public sector entities such as a federal, state, local, or tribal government agencies or any of their instrumentalities. Institutions of higher education, and a consortium of two or more of any of the above mentioned eligible applicants. In a consortium application, there must be a designated lead applicant. That lead applicant would enter into the award agreement with MBDA and assume primary operational and financial responsibilities for completing the project should an award be made. As a note, MBDA is not authorized to provide cooperative agreements to individuals under this NOFO, and such requests will not be considered for funding.
Scrolling down, I see something that I think is very unique, and probably a lot of folks are asking themselves the same question. Can funding be used to provide loan guarantees or collateral to support getting access to capital?
I can find that.
I think that was.
Oh, I see that. And that answer is no.
Okay. Along that way, how long does the application review process take? And when will I find out the results of the competition?
Great question. The anticipated timeline for processing awards is between 90 and 120 days from the closing date for receipt of applications. The anticipated award date is July 1st, 2023. MBDA anticipates announcing a list of award recipients prior to the start of the actual award period.
Thank you. Okay, here's an interesting question. Can you give some examples of activities that we could do under the capacity building pillar of this program?
So for capacity building, proposals would demonstrate how the applicant will offer technical assistance services and curricula to assist SETI entrepreneurs with launching and developing scalable and investable businesses. Examples of eligible capacity building activities include, but are not limited to, management training, marketing training, media and social media training, financial literacy, financial planning, accounting, legal assistance, startup boot camps, personal development modules, workforce development, empowerment workshops, pre-accelerator workshops, practice pitches, and subject matter expertise modules. increasing awareness of basic credit practices and credit requirements, increasing awareness of capital raising options under federal securities laws, and assisting in the development of business plans, financial packages, and credit applications. Applicants should be aware as they develop their proposal that MBDA anticipates facilitating coordination between awardees and other federal agency programs and networks to supplement the awardees' existing networks of subject matter experts, such as collaborating with the U.S. Patent and Trademark Office on intellectual property modules and collaborating with the International Trade Administration to provide international trade technical assistance, such as exploring exporting opportunities.
That was pretty comprehensive. Thank you, Angela. So along that way, how about if we go through some of the rest, not some, but let's just go through the rest of the pillars, shall we?
All righty. The second pillar is access to capital. Proposals must demonstrate how the applicant will provide technical assistance to SETI entrepreneurs to apply for state SSBCI programs and or similar federal, state, or local government programs that promote American examples of, I'm not sure what that was, promote American businesses. Examples of eligible activities that could be provided include, but are not limited to, assisting entrepreneurs with identifying government capital programs, assisting entrepreneurs with navigating government capital programs, technical assistance with applications to programs, facilitating investor meetings, pitches, demo days, crowdfunding, provided workshops or webinars to enhance the knowledge of the various types of capital, investor speed dating, and other capital introduction events or events that successfully attract capital into the community that the applicant serves. The last pillar is access to networks. Proposals must demonstrate how the applicant will provide resources and programs that help connect SETI entrepreneurs to a larger community of business mentors, coaches, service providers, subject matter experts, and peers who understand and address SETI-specific challenges. Some examples of eligible activities include, but are not limited to, those types of events that facilitate the formation of professional relationships, such as strategic alliances, mentorship relationships, peer support, working to attract and train a qualified workforce, creating an advisory board, cultivating stakeholders, corporate partnerships, securing vendors, advisors, and service providers, matchmaking events, helping SETI entrepreneurs conduct resource and asset mapping across the region to collect investor networks, and increasing SETI participation in public and private large-scale investment industries, such as affordable housing development and climate-related technologies or services, two of the administration's priorities.
Again, most comprehensive. Thank you for that, Angela. It looks like I'm seeing questions about the non-federal matching share requirement. And it appears as if the question is, do I need to have the matching funds at the time of application?
That is a really great question. And the answer is no. At the time of applications, we want the applicants to indicate their commitment to the non-federal cost share and submit a plan that demonstrates their ability to meet the required matching share over the course of the 4-year program. This plan would include identifying all sources of funds, including but not limited to current assets, prospective income streams, including but not limited to program fees, third-party contributions, either cash or in kind, etc. Note, if an applicant has requested a waiver, the applicant must also submit a plan to meet the matching share if they wish to be considered for funding in the event that the waiver is not granted. As a condition of continued funding, awardees may be required to submit updated plans, commitment letters, or other documentation for matching share funds in future budget years. Failure to meet the required non-federal cost match may result in termination of the award. And just as a note here, there is going to be another workshop on budget and some of the things that you'll want to plan for. This will be one of the topics in that one that will be held on the 24th.
this level of knowledge. There's another question regarding SETI, socially economically disadvantaged individuals, right? What does this mean? What's actually the definition?
Good question. For this program, a SETI-owned firm is a business that is owned and controlled by individuals or whose current majority founders are individuals who have had their access to credit on reasonable terms diminished compared to others in comparable economic circumstances due to their, number one, membership in a group that has been subjected to racial or ethnic prejudice or cultural bias within the American society, gender, veteran status, or limited English proficiency. Also, that includes disability, long-term residence in an environment isolated from mainstream American society, membership in a federally or state-recognized Indian tribe, long-term residence in a rural community, being a resident in a U.S. territory, residents in a community that's undergoing economic transition, including communities impacted by the shift towards a net zero economy or deindustrialization, or membership in an underserved community. Let's go into that underserved community definition. I saw a question answer whether LGBTQ persons are included in that underserved communities definition, and the answer is yes. Persistent poverty and inequality also are included, as well as religious minorities and other communities. Please review the NOFO carefully on this definition. There are also parts in the definition that include business operating in or planning to operating in community development financial institutions or CDFI investment areas. I'd encourage you to look at the NOFO definition for those as well.
I think we need to pause and give our audience an opportunity to answer some questions here. I've got the next question teed up, but for those of you that are online, please continue to provide us with your questions. We love what's coming in. We hope that this has been very helpful to you. Please just keep it coming, because this way we can take care of business right here, right now, help you be better informed about the program, what it is that we're looking for, and help you become better competitors for this program itself. How about if I go into the next question, Angela? You ready for it? Okay, here we go. Can I charge indirect costs to this project? For example, how do applicants without a current or pending negotiated indirect cost rate agreement account for indirect costs in the budget narrative? It sounds like this person is very sophisticated, number one, because they understand indirect costs and the level of sophistication that goes behind it.
Great question, and I appreciate this one. If indirect costs are included in the project budget, then the applicant must include documentation to support the indirect cost rate if it is used it's used by submitting a copy of its current approved negotiated indirect cost rate agreement, or the NCRA. See the NOFO section 4 on page 14 for full details. If the applicant does not have a current or pending NICRA, the applicant can elect to apply the 10% minimum rate to modify total direct costs. The definition can be found on section 2 CFR 200.1. If electing to use the de minimis rate, the applicant should include a statement in the budget narrative stating that it does not have a current or provisional negotiated indirect rate and is electing to charge the de minimis rate. Again, see the NOFO for more information about this.
Thank you for that. That was really comprehensive. Outstanding. Okay, the next question, let's tee that one up. What supporting documents must be included in an application for this program?
Great question. The applicant should make sure that you review the NOFO to understand what's suggested and or required, especially the supporting documents that should be submitted as part of your application. For example, you'll need to provide in your supporting documents section of the applicant's a bio or a resume showing relevant experience of the applicant's key leaders. For example, the president or a CEO to oversee the success of the proposed project, as well as for the project project personnel who will lead the project. And this is all found on page 23 of the NOFO for a list, and you'll see the list of requirement documents there. And this also will be answered in the next webinar, which will be next Tuesday, the 17th. But to continue with that, please note that the applicant should have one budget narrative that covers all budget years, one SF 424 that covers all the budget years, and 4 separate 424As for each. So that'll be one for each budget year.
That's what you just said, because I know sometimes it gets lost, right? This is government speak, government acronyms, SF 424. What are we talking about here? So a 424A is a sub-breakout of a budget. That being the case, that is why one SF 424 is needed for each budget year. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Thank you. Okay, next question. Can the funding be used for salary?
And the answer there is yes.
The funding can be used to cover salary and related expenses for individuals that will be part of executing the proposed project, as long as you're including it in the budget narrative.
Okay. I know this has been very much rapid fire Q&A here. Hope it's being appreciated. So what is the difference between a grant and a cooperative agreement?
The key difference between a grant and a cooperative agreement is that under a cooperative agreement, the federal agency has substantial involvement in the operation of the program and the technical assistance that's provided. All capital readiness program awards will be cooperative agreements, like providing training related to the purpose of this program, eligible activities, and program performance goals.
I think we have a question, speaking of performance goals, a question regarding performance goals. It appears that the question is, we do not see any specific goals in the NOFO. Have the goals been set?
Actually, if you take a look at Appendix B and review that carefully, we have required categories of goals, and each applicant must provide numeric goals.
I want to give the audience a few more minutes to enter some questions and remind them, please. Let's take a quick pause, maybe a 30-second pause before we begin to answer any more questions. I'm doing a time check. It seems as if we have about approximately 6 minutes, give or take, before we bring this session to a close. I see some questions coming in. Fantastic. I want to give a big shout out to our crew that's supporting us here in terms of capturing the questions, helping us with the responses. Angela, I think we're ready for the next one.
Ready.
Let's see. Sorry, folks, bear with me. We're having a bit of a technical slow delay here. While we're waiting for a couple more questions to come through to us here, I just want to take a moment to remind everybody, please, 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 if you are interested in participating in the application process for this program, please let us know. Please do take a moment to take a look at the email of intent process that's on page 15 of the NOFO. By you telling us who you are, a little bit background about your organization, and ways that we can communicate with you, it helps us in the long run to better have informative information for you. Okay. Again, a quick reminder to everybody, we do have existing frequently asked questions that have been posted on the MBDA website. Visit mbda.gov. Go ahead and select the Capital Readiness Program. Under that landing page, you will see the updated frequently asked questions. And so a lot of the questions that we are receiving have already been answered in the FAQs. So this is one way for us to be a little bit more efficient with your time in terms of making sure that we get all the questions and answers out there to you sooner rather than later. Angela, ready for the next question? Is there a set number of awardees per state or region or are you awarding without regard to geography?
Well, this is a national competition, and we do not have a minimum or maximum number of awardees in each state.
Very good. Angela, I'm cognizant of the time, and ladies and gentlemen, please continue to enter your questions into the question prompt. However, I think in terms of being fair to and being sensitive to everybody's schedule, we are going to go ahead and begin the closeout procedures for this session. So a couple of reminders, if I may. Thank you so much for keeping that slide up. Again, let's go ahead and start to look at a couple of important reminders here. Our second session is going to be focused on application review criteria. That's going to be held on January the 17th, followed by the budget best practices and pitfalls to avoid. Measuring success and performance, that's on January 24th. I encourage everybody that participated today to also participate in those two additional sessions. You'll learn a lot. You'll be able to ask more questions with respect to those specific areas of the NOFO itself. Again, take a look at the frequently asked questions. And also, major reminder, please do not forget to read the NOFO in its entirety. Having that document and being knowledgeable about that document helps you to better understand what it is that we're aiming for. It also helps you to ask us questions that are going to be extremely relevant to you as you begin to prepare your application. Ladies and gentlemen, unfortunately, we've run out of time. However, if you have any questions after this session, please continue to monitor our MBDA website under the frequently asked questions. We're sure that some of the questions that you've entered into the question prompt will be answered and will be posted there in a fairly short period of time. A few reminders. Again, carefully read the NOFO. We will post unanswered questions onto the MBDA website after today's session. We anticipate that we will get some of the answers to the questions as early as within 48 hours. This session has been taped and will be accessible at www.mbda.gov. And we will also enclose closed captioning also within 48 hours of today's session. And finally, please remember to join us on our future webinars. For Carrie Lee, Angela Bell, and the entire MBDA team, I'm Efrain Gonzalez. Thank you for joining, and we will see you at our next session. Goodbye.